Why was John the Baptist wandering around in the wilderness? What was he doing out there? Why would he go there? Why were there groves outside of the first temple in Israel, in the land of Judah? Why were there circles of trees where people gathered? I think it's pretty clear that those are the things that are really important. Yeshua walked in the wilderness. He walked. Well, I had a donkey or two. And basically, he was a man who traveled outside. He was a man of the outside. His birth was essentially outside, in a stall, in a little barn, which is mostly outside. It's where the beasts lay. So that connection, that key to the natural world is one that we should be learning to emulate, to make our own wilderness trek, to be outside, not so much outside in the weather, although that does happen. Not outside just to be hit in the head with a thunderbolt or a lightning bolt, but it is to be outside to connect with the natural world from which we spring. It is our source. It is the place by which we are born into and we come from. So returning to the wilderness is something that is extremely important for our own development as beings. We are beings in a natural world. There is no artificial reality. Yeshua was not baptized under a dome by a bearded fellow with a white cassock or priestly robes. That wasn't what happened. So why do we want that to happen? Why do we ask ourselves that we should, or why do we prod ourselves to go in that direction? Because we're looking for an authority, somebody who is one of our ecclesiastical betters to do that for us? I don't know. I don't know how that could ever be. I think it's, without making too much of a stew about it, it is the imperial church that wants those kinds of authorities to confirm, to baptize, to marry. I mean, I think there's a good sense of authority that needs to come down, and, it could be a familial authority. But the idea that we need to be lockstep, that we need to be in doctrinal certainty, that we need to be informed of our theological positions, I don't think makes much sense, because that's not really where our faith and our connections come from. Again, let's think about the altars in the wilderness that were the altars of the first temple. Those are the altars that Yeshua wanted to rebuild. The mission of Yeshua, in his understanding, as much as I can understand it, is to rebuild the first temple. That was what he wanted to do. He did not want the temple of Josiah, King Josiah, to remain as it was. He did not like it. And the people of that temple, the Sanhedrin, the Pharisees, and the Sadducees, did not want him either. They were very clear about it. Their authority in their minds was certain. And in the mind of Yeshua, they really didn't have much authority. So Yeshua went to the wilderness. He was carried up to the mountain, onto the mountain, by the prince of this world. And he allowed himself to be carried up because he knew that his natural place was sufficient. He did not have to unnaturally rule over the land. The land was fine. There's nothing left to be done. It is not an empire or a kingdom. It is where we come from. So that essence of ourselves in the wilderness is really important. And Yeshua was in the wilderness his whole life, surrounded by crowds of people. His connection was vertical, not horizontal. And that vertical connection is the same connection that we can indulge ourselves in. We can connect vertically. We can connect to the divine hierarchy. The horizontal world is a world which we find ourselves and which we can extol the virtues of our divine connection, our vertical connection, in a way that is just absolutely glorious. It's just a wonderful thing. So the vertical world manifests itself in the horizontal, not under a dome, not in a cathedral, not surrounded by robes and scepters and other things of authority. It's just, there it is. It's in its most natural way. I really like that idea that we carry the wilderness with us in a way. We invite the wilderness to be with us. I mean, you can't really get away from it. I mean, you can always build a camper and, build a house and build a villa and have predator walls. And, you can do all those things, but ultimately there's no escape from the wilderness that is here. So how much better to just go into the wilderness and accept it and understand it and be part of it and allow the wilderness to bring to us what it wants. You cannot go out into the wilderness and seek your own fortunes. I mean, you can, but ultimately it's never what we anticipate. Too much other stuff happens. There's too many unknowns, too many variables, too many forces at play, too much psychic power that we don't understand. So what I'm saying is that there is a psychic power that comes from venturing into the wilderness, but it is bestowed upon us. We do not grasp it. We do not clutch it. We cannot tame it. It is part of who we are, and it rests on us most naturally, not as something which we have been initiated in. It's just what is. It's what is there. And so to walk outside, to be free, to be in the wilderness and to understand there are pitfalls and there are voices in the night. There are so many things. And yet they are the things which are supposed to be there. We make the mistake of thinking that the things of the wilderness are not really supposed to be there, and we better, cover ourselves up from them. I wonder. More, I think it's that they're supposed to be there just for the purpose of being there so that we might acquire a wisdom of the natural world. That is part of our vertical experience. That is our direct connection with the divine. And so I'm recommending for myself and for you to venture outside, to make a trek into the wilderness, and to find beauty in that wilderness. And confronted by beauty and embraced by beauty, we find emotional clarity. And in the wilderness, we find a divine connection that is, I think, a clarity of morality, a moral clarity that comes from that. And one of the things about Yeshua that is so powerful to me is that his sense of moral clarity is so pure that he radiates to me beauty. He is a beautiful man. And his baptism was a beautiful thing. It was the baptism of Yahweh making himself known in a man. So it is the great angel Yahweh manifested in Yeshua, who was at that moment resurrected. That is a very beautiful image to me. And I ask you to think about that as I think about it. It's a powerful thing. And you can read about it in the Gospel of Philip, 10 or 11, I think. It's a verse that's been set aside. It's been kind of ignored. There's a shadow banning of the Gospel of Philip. And who do you think it was that decided that Philip didn't really have it right? It was those who had other ideas, who were authorized by Constantine. I don't know that I really want the authorizations of Constantine to be the doorway or passageway of my own faith and life. I suppose, at some point we need some direction, but there's a dogmatic and doctrinaire cloud over the experience of Yeshua as it relates to me. I don't want to have all that stuff. I want to be more certain. And that certainty comes from my own experience. It's trusting my own experience. So I urge you to, venture out into the wilderness to find beauty and clarity and to trust that. Amen.